Hi, this is Jennifer Timko from Stampin' on the Fly, and I'm here today to share with you a technique using the new watercolor pencils from Stampin' Up and Stampin' Up Ink. The first card I did for you today uses this big bold image flower from the stamp set Flourishing Phrases. And the key here is that it's a solid image stamp. Using my Misty tool to make sure I get good coverage, and some watercolor paper, I'm inking it up with Soft Sky ink. I chose the Soft Sky because the watercolor pencil in the new pack is in Bermuda Bay, and I knew these two blues would work beautifully together. I was happy with my coverage on my first time stamping this, so I was able to just go ahead and pull it off and get to watercoloring it. Now, using a stamp chamois, I'm cleaning off the stamp with just a little bit of water and then moving my Misty out of the way. I use just a little base underneath just for me to make sure that I don't make a mess with the water. I have my Bermuda Bay pencil, as you can see. And I'm going to pull in some water and my brush 2O, which is from Zig. And it's a water pen with a little bit of a finer tip than the one from Stampin' Up. But truthfully, you could probably use a fine tip paintbrush instead, because I don't have any water in the barrel of that brush 2O. I just am using it because I like the fine tip. So what I'm doing is I'm adding shading on all the tips of my flowers and some of the bases too, and each little petal I'm coming back in and watercoloring it. The beautiful thing is you can see, because of the watercolor paper, the ink and the pencil start to blend together, and it looks like I'm hand watercoloring each petal. And I get the individual shading. It reminds me a little bit of the rock and roll technique, except that I can get placement of color exactly where I want it with this pencil. And just a little bit of shading on each individual petal, which is awesome. It's fun working with these complementary blues, and you end up with a really nice effect when you're done. The watercolor paper itself makes a big difference when you're doing this technique. There are lots and lots of different watercolor papers out on the market, and you're going to want to find one that really allows you to move the ink and the pencil around a little bit. I find that I have kind of a whole series of watercolor papers, and I use different ones for different things. In this case, for today, for this sample, this is the Fabriano Cold Press 140 pound watercolor paper. I'm going ahead and showing you some of the inner petals and exactly how I colored those. On these especially, I added a little bit more color to the base there so that I can pull your eye towards the center. And again, just blending each petal out individually. It does take a little bit of time, but the effect is beautiful, and it looks like a hand-drawn, hand watercolored image by the time you're all done. Just coming in to show you how I finished this center. You can pull in a little bit of color from the pencil if you want to add highlights in there. Now for the full card, I did stamp the leaf, and I stamped that leaf in Pear Pizzazz ink because I knew that we had the Old Olive pencil. Again, Pear Pizzazz and the Old Olive are sister colors, and they work really, really well. You can see I just stamped, and then I came in with the pencil and added some highlighting, and then went back with my water pen and colored over it to blend it. I started to wonder what would happen if instead of using tone-on-tone colors, I used some colors with a little bit more difference. So I experimented and I came up with Daffodil Delight and Pumpkin Pie as a combination. Now in this case, again using my Misty, and I did have to stamp this one a couple of times, I stamped using Daffodil Delight, and I'm coming in with my Pumpkin Pie. All right, I'm going to put on some music here, and I'm going to let you just see how I watercolored this image as we go along. I love the final effect on this little note card. You can totally add more shading in if that's the look you're going for, but this one was a little bit more subtle. So I'm going to show you my experimental sheet, how I came up with my combinations. I started at first with Pink Pirouette and Melon Mambo, as you can see on the right. And then I also stamped with Daffodil Delight, as you know, and playing with the pumpkin pie, but I also tried it with Pacific Point, which gives you that green up at the top, which is interesting, and I'll probably try again. And then the final one was Smoky Slate with Basic Gray, which is beautiful and really elegant. On my final cards, I just added a stamped sentiment on the note card in Smoky Slate with the paper pumpkin sentiment, and then the hello comes from the stamp set with the flower on the right card. Glad you joined me today. Thanks so much for stopping in. See you soon.